Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Lunch with the Genius, and please continue eating. And I know we have several people that are joining online as well. Thank you for being here on a spring afternoon in the Ozarks. Lots of stuff happening on campus, although we're getting closer to the end of the spring semester. And at this time, we'll bring up our President Cliff Smart. Probably have breaking news he can talk about too.
Good. So thank you, Brent. And I will say we do have some breaking news. As of 10 minutes after 11, we received the signed contract of our new basketball coach. And so it is official. Conzo Martin is our coach again. Conzo was here from 2008 to 2011. Went to Tennessee that year to quadruple his salary. And has been, I'm not making that up. We were paying, I don't know what we were paying him then, but Tennessee was paying him almost $2 million a year, 13 years ago. And Sam, very successful there, very successful at California, took each of those teams to the Sweet 16, took the University of Missouri to the NCAA playoffs 2 out of 5 years. For us, we won the Missouri Valley Conference regular season title under him. That is the only time in 40 plus years we have won the Valley tournament. And so very much a character man. He has spent the last year and a half working on creating leadership training modules and podcasts connected to developing character in young men. And we are very excited that he is back. And we'll have a press conference on Monday at 1 o'clock for him to meet the media. So I'll say a couple things about the search. Thing number one, everything you read in the news leader was made up as false. Just is. There are 2 people that knew how we were managing this search. Kyle Moats, our athletic director, who was doing it, and me. That's it. 2. Neither of us ever talked to the news leader. And so they talked to other people that didn't know things, and they wrote ideas that people suggested. And so, you know, I think on Monday, our sports reporter had a list of 5 potential candidates for the coach and had to be one of these guys. And nope, sorry. We already had an agreement with him by then. Of course, we didn't tell the news leader guy. And so the other thing, the second thing is, why do we release it today? Our practice is we do not publicly release who a new hire is until they've officially signed the contract. And at 10 minutes after 11, we got the signed version of the contract. And so at 11:30, we released the paper. So nothing nefarious, no conspiracy theories, just the way it works. So feel good about that. We feel good about that. How are you, Alan? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Second thing is, yesterday I officially applied to retire, and so my retirement date is July 1. This was one of the big things to check off the list, but there's some more coming. We've got one more budget to do. We've got one more legislative session to get through. We've got a new health insurance contract to negotiate, and maybe another thing or two coming down the road. But we're starting to wrap things up, and want to tell this group what a pleasure it has been to engage with all of you and to be president of the university. As I think back over an almost 40-year career, work career, graduated law school in 1986. So almost 40 years. Couldn't have imagined being president of the university, and couldn't imagine having a job, a career as meaningful as the last 13 years. So thank you all.
Now we are going to go on to our Lunch with the Genius hour here. And so would you please give a warm welcome to our genius, Marty Lueck. Marty, welcome. Grab a seat. It is good to have Alan Journagan here. And of course, we're going to be talking about the Journagan Ranch. That it didn't seem that long ago when we had the press conference to announce this important gift. But that was what, 2009, something like that. And that wasn't that long ago. But Journagan Ranch has had a big impact on Missouri State. So, but Marty Lueck is the guy running the ranch. And he wasn't an employee of Missouri State, obviously at the time, he is now. So we're gonna start, Marty, at the very beginning of the world of Marty Lueck. So start us off. Tell us where you were born, tell us about your family, tell us, as a little kid, what kind of kid were you? Had to use a microphone, though. You don't have those on the ranch.
I was born in Sibley, Iowa, and raised in Minneapolis, suburb of Minneapolis. And so I didn't have cows in my backyard. My grandfather had a farm on the Minnesota River Valley, which we go down and visit. I was pretty later. And my aunt and uncle in Northwest Iowa, my mom's sister, they had a diversified farm there. So I watched all this stuff going on. I loved the animals. I loved being there in that life. But my whole high school career, it was focused on architecture.
Architecture?
Yeah, I was going to be an architectural engineer.
So how early were you when you said, yeah, that's the kind of.
I was a sophomore.
Oh, wow.
The whole deal went through that. I worked with VICA, Vocational Industrial Clubs of America.
Yeah.
Had a lot of my drawings with competition. And working for a firm, half a day. So that's where I was geared.
So as a kid, the subjects you like, math, was that were you pretty good at math?
Math and agriculture, we didn't have FFA even in our high schools. That's how suburban like it was. Participated in 4-H a little bit, but you had to get out in the county to be able to do that. I showed pedigreed rabbits at Best Opposite Breed State Fair 2 years in a row.
So how'd that happen?
I love animals, and my neighbor had rabbits, and I went over there and I said, well, I can do this. So I just started doing it, and back then I was selling rabbits for $25 a piece. That's all they bring today. And so that was a lot of money. My first job only paid me $1.40 an hour, so. You can see the benefits of doing that, and I raised some game birds and things. I like being outside, I like being around that stuff.
So being an architect, you're inside. And so what happened? What happened to you? Where you said, no, I'm gonna go outside.
I'd already graduated high school and I was working at that firm, and I just woke up one morning and I said, I can see myself doing this. I can't be inside all the time. And I didn't know what I was gonna do. And Baptist Bible College from Springfield had come through our church, and my parents had no means. They couldn't help me with anything with schooling, so you could go there for $80 a month, which was your room and board, and the churches paid the tuition. I said, well, I'll just go there. I'll figure out what I'm going to do when I get here to Springfield. I was here, worked at Zenith 60 days. I was here. You went to work at 4 o'clock, got off at 1, attended school. That was the way I could pay my bills.
So what'd you do at Zenith?
Just sat there on one of those lines and popped parts in.
That was a big
That was a
company.
big deal. Yeah.
That was a
And they
big company.
provided a lot of jobs. And one day I got walking pneumonia, so I said, this is not where I'm gonna go. Made me really appreciate my dad because he was in factory work all his life. But that 60 days, I got to see what he went through on a daily basis for a long time. And I walked into a veterinary office down there on Campbell, Great Shopping Center, Dr. B. Brock. And I remember walking in that day. And I just walked in and says, I'd like to have a job. And he said, well, Joe's in the office over here. He's sitting there in his green coveralls and his nasty boots propped up on the desk, eating a bologna sandwich, and his hands were black. And I said, now, how gross is this? I didn't say that to him, but that's what I was thinking. after I got the job with him, I was doing the same thing. It was dehorning powder and you couldn't wash it off your hands. You can sit there and wash it all you want, but anyway, that started going. He had 4 kids. And that was my first deal with Herefords. And with 4 kids that wanted to show and do all that, I got thrown into that wide open. And my career in Hereford took off from there.
So how old were you?
I was 18.
18 years old.
Yeah, I worked there for the 4 years I was at SMS here.
And then, so you knew in college then.
Well, just doors open, and I wasn't afraid to walk through them. And I give that advice to students today. Don't be afraid to walk through a door before you have any commitments.
Yeah.
Before you've got a wife or kids or husband or something, just walk through, even if it moves you 2 states away. Go experience something different, and that's what happened to me, and changed my life forever.
So then how did you get acquainted then with Leo and Gene Journagan?
Well, I worked at Journagan Ranch, for Wayne and Bart Leatherman. Wayne was executive vice president, construction design of Silver Dollar City. And they had a ranch down in Stone County, and I was there 3 years. And we put a set of cows in the Springfield newspaper, and Leo showed up at our doorstep. And, you know, I've never met him before. Very interesting man. He just got back from elk hunting. And, he tried to hire me that day. He said, "Why don't you just come work for me?" I said, "Oh, no, things are going. We just had the reserve national champion Hereford and national junior champion bull, and, you know, things were kind of going good." He was very persistent, and a year later, and so that's how that all started. And I get tickled that Jean, Leo's wife, when he was in the nursing home there towards the end of his life, Gene says, "I heard your name for a full year, and I didn't even know who you were." He said, "Come on, I'm gonna hire that Marty Lueck." But it really went off well. Leo and I seen things very much alike. And I remember Alan saying something with, "You never got cross with him?" And I said, "No, I know who wrote my paycheck."
Alan, did you get crossed with your father a few times?
Very, very civil.
Yeah, but we had the pleasure, several of us had the pleasure of getting to know Leo and Gene Journagan. And obviously Alan and Jill and the entire family, and just incredible people. Tell us a little bit more about them.
Well, and you know, you meet somebody, and I'll never forget, Leo says, "Well, I'll just meet you at the ranch," and everybody at the ranch quit. So all of a sudden I'm here by myself, and I felt like I jumped into a pool with 10-foot high sides. How am I gonna get out of this? And he come down on a Sunday. I started on a Monday. We kind of drove around. He had me lost in 2 pastures. I didn't know where the goddamn gates were. And then I didn't have anybody to show me. And he says, "Well, you'll get along." And we did most of our business by phone for a long time, just because he didn't come to the ranch. You know, on the weekend, he might be there a Saturday or a Sunday, and then he's gone. And we developed a bond and a trust over time. And I remember he got to a point and he said, "Marty, you just run this thing." And so I did. Didn't really want to be bothered with the day-to-day, but when we talked about major decisions, we talk, and then he'd go, "Well, what do you think we ought to do?" And I tell him, he says, "Well, then that's what we'll do." You know how much confidence that gives you? It's huge. But he was that way. I'm sure Alan, I know, talking one time, we were getting ready to do this gifting process, and he said, "Yep, that's what Dad did to me. He just virtually took me out to the job and dumped me off." I said, "Run it."
Well, it's worked.
Yeah.
It has worked.
And it's worked. So he just treated me like part of the family. And Alan's done the same thing. Good family to work with.
Yeah. So, I wish everybody, and we will have a chance here coming up in May, which I'll tell you more, where everybody can go to the ranch, and been to the ranch several times. But tell us in your words, I mean, how big of a deal that is for a university to have 3,300 acres and to have that impact on education, and the number of cattle. there? I mean, tell us, because you've been on national board, or you maybe still on national
Been on
board.
2 national.
And tell us, well, I asked you several questions there, so let me go back. Tell us the impact of that facility coming over to an educational institution.
Well, I remember our first conversation about it. I was asked to come to the office and got there, and there's Leo and Jean and Alan in Alan's office, and they closed the door, we set up pleasantries, and Alan says, Dad wants to give the ranch to Missouri State University. What do you think? Well, that's just like taking a book upside your head and saying, wow. And I wanted to grab him and say, so what's going through your head on this? And afterwards, he told me, he said, you know, Marty, he said, someday there's going to be students that want to be a part of agriculture. And how are they going to experience that? They're going to come from the suburbs. They're not going to have any background. And he said, I think there needs to be a property or somewhere where they can gain that access. And so I've been able to watch that with students that we've had there. Favorite time for me is cabin season. So if we're having difficulty with a heifer or whatever, I'll go in and make sure everything's present. And then I make them put the straps on and pull it. But you sit there and there'll be there was a gal there one time, and you could tell she didn't know a whole lot about it, but she got to be part of that process. And when that calf came out, the look on her face was priceless. Her eyes this big, you know, and she just experienced something she was never gonna, they probably experience any other way.
So you've mentioned you're on a couple national boards. I mean, anywhere we go in agriculture in the state, and I forget what hotel I was at, and a guy I didn't know, and he saw that as from Missouri State. He goes, Journagan Ranch? I go, yeah. And he goes, you know a guy named Marty Lueck? Yeah, I met him a couple times, but you're well known in the state. And tell us the experience you have on these boards, because this is not a state deal, this is a national deal. And tell us the impact of that.
So the first board I served on was the American Full Hereford Association. There was 2 Hereford organizations at the time, and that was from 87 to 91. I got elected to that board when I was 32. That's pretty young. And I was put on the executive committee, and that particular board, executive committee stayed, you know, so you try to put one on each year of a director's life. And so I was on it 4 years. And I was part of the strategic plan. So my job, I was chairman of the reevaluation of the Full Hereford Association at the time. And to go through that, I got to work with a couple industry giants. I mean, Sam Shapiro was a chief executive officer for American Textiles. And I got to work with Charlie Ball, who was past editor of Beef Magazine, but chairman of Texas Cattle Feeders. And they helped develop questions. Our committee put that forth. We sent it to the membership. And then our Vision 2000, I think it was in 92, we did that, and we brought members in. Of course, this is before emails and things like that. So we allowed so many delegates from each state come in, work with a facilitator, and map out a plan on the direction we wanted to go. So I got to be part of something probably at the very, you know, back then strategic planning was just kind of a new thing. And so I got off that in 91. My goal was to get both associations merged. In 95. I was one of the non-board members who called in to help merge the 2 associations. And that was a difficult deal. A lot of old blood, a lot of things that went on the deal, which I never seen because I wasn't involved. But I just said, we're two trains going down parallel tracks. The first one that ditches, the other one swallows. And so we need to do this and be equitable.
So at that time, you obviously didn't have a clue that if you're going to be an employee of Missouri State University or educational, taking that from a working ranch to still a working ranch.
Yeah, it is.
But it's educational as well. Tell me the experiences that students have. What do they, and how many students are we talking about? Tell us the impact.
We get some summer interns, and for safety factors, I can't have too many. Cattle are still unpredictable, equipment can be dangerous, and, you know, I tell my employees, I said, don't just go say, get on that tractor. You go in there and make sure they know how to run it, or if you're sorting cattle, that they stay out of danger. That's the last thing I need. Anson taught me something at the very start. He said, don't do anything that makes the front page of the paper or even the news.
Anson, he knows, That's a good one.
Yeah, but anyway, we've had those, we usually try to take 2 interns at a time, sometimes we'll have 1, whatever, and then we'll have, I know we had a B class where they came down, they had to spend at least 1 day at the ranch, which became more of a glorified tour type deal, which doesn't really show them anything, and it's gonna take probably something to do with where they can have 2-week blocks where they can come down, where they can experience everything, or not everything, but what's going on at a particular time. Because 1 day you're not gonna be able to do that. But it's been neat. We started going to Denver. I think that would have been in 2015. We took a pen of heifers out there and we took students. We branded those kids. So they had jackets that said Missouri State. They had hats that said that. They represented us very well. Got a lot of good comments from people. And then I got people asking, I'd like to need someone to help on the ranch. And I'm not talking Missouri. I'm talking Idaho, Georgia, Texas, Wisconsin. So we were recognized. And then in 20, that was the last time we were there. But we were successful in that. Well, students helped. We won our classes in those pens. We were divisions. I think reserve division once. And so we were pretty prominent, so we got a lot of attention, and that's huge. And then we had a genetic summit. I was just getting off American Hereford Association board in 2011, and we held that summit in 12, but I was instrumental to get that there. Most of those breeders that came in across the country that says, we didn't know this place even existed. And so trying to get that on the map, it's really huge. Be able to see people who can recognize what Missouri State is today.
But it is one of the largest full herds in America, right?
Right, so Missouri State, the Journagan Ranch seed stock organization there is the largest of any university-owned farm. And so that carries some weight with that, we have students come here, a lot of them from Missouri, they want to be a part of that Hereford influence and deal, many students have come through here because of that. And hopefully that doesn't change either.
So describe the ranch. In your words, if you had to tell a group that's never been there before.
Well,
what it's like.
it really, it kind of sits in the middle of nowhere. It's a beautiful setting.
Hour and 15 minutes from here?
Yep, hour and 15 minutes right from this place right here. You can get there. It's 7 miles long. And you get, people say, how big is 3,800 acres? Well, 7 miles long. It's all continuous property. And so that's rare in this day and time. And, when Leo put it together, I think he got 880 acres in that first deal from Dane Sullivan. And then he just added pieces. And I remember one time we're bidding on a piece of property. I said, Leo, that's way too much money. And he said, I'm going to teach you something here. He says, this may only come up in my lifetime once. And it means more to me than the next person down the road. So if I really want to put it in there, then that's what I do. And so he was a good businessman when it came to that. And he taught me a lot of things. One of my favorites is we need to have a little money through the winter to feed. And so he sent me to MFA to negotiate what interest would be. And we could borrow that money and then pay it back when we sold our cattle. And I did all that. I come back to his office. I'm just ready to sit down and give my presentation. And he says, well, I've got a better idea. I said, what's that? We're going to do a share loan on one of my CDs, which cuts the interest in that. And I said, so I didn't do that for nothing? No, you learned something. But he had a funny way sometimes teaching you those lessons, but it worked and it's been very good.
Were you nervous when the decision was made from the family that they're going to give this to Missouri State? I mean, that's sort of like.
Well, the age difference between Leo and myself, I knew at some time if he passes away, I'm still going to have work career left. And that bothered me. And he said, I think I'm going to be able to provide a way for you to stay gainfully employed after I'm gone. And that was his idea. He didn't tell me that at the time, but that's what his idea was.
It was a good idea.
Oh, I thought it was
a good idea for sure. Tell us, what's a day like at the ranch?
Well, we usually get up. My guys are all self-starters, which is really important. We don't punch a time clock. But when they leave their house, they just start making the rounds. Everybody's responsible for different tasks.
And they live.
Yeah, most of them live on the farm. Got one guy that lives off, but it's in the same distance as what it would be if he lived on the farm. We just didn't have a house available. But,
So what time are we talking about?
7:30, 8 o'clock.
Oh, that's late.
Yeah. Okay. And it's then when the day's done. So
Okay.
it may get really stretched on the other end, and it's hard to run a ranch on a 40-yard deal. And I'm sure HR's had some questions for me on that a time or two, but
They're not.
cows don't have holidays.
No.
They don't have vacations. They don't understand the difference between day and night. And so we might be out there all night helping cows calve or do those kind of things, but, it's just, I don't know, it's a passion of mine, so it's really not work to me. It's something I enjoy doing, and I'm not afraid to get up every day and do it.
Streams? You have streams and?
Yeah, we have one that runs the whole length of the ranch, Clifty Creek, and then we've got a couple other ones, Red Bank, and that'll come in there. And we got some rain in it here this week, and so we have running water, and we haven't had that for almost a year, and so it's been pretty scary. You know, without this rain, we don't get grass, we have ponds that are dry, and so it was getting pretty critical. God's blessed us.
We'll go to some pictures, because I think we got, some pictures of, the ranch and, of the family. This is, and describe which, where we're looking there.
That was taken this fall. It was probably about 6:30 in the morning. And I was out checking some heifers. And at sunrise and then that fog that sets over there where Leo built his house, you can't even see it. That's from a different, not the same day, it's a different day, but it's same deal, looking down into the valley and being up on the hilltop. It's just some cows out grazing back when we had rain and grass. We haven't had grass that's looked like that for about 3 years, so it's.
And what's the number of cattle now?
Well, that's a set of Herefords, that's a set of fall calvers that were gonna be in our sale that year. That's there right, just right below our green corral, what we call the green corral on the hill. And summer deal just out, and you see that picture and go, oh, that looks nice, I'll snap that.
So how many total before we?
Whole cows here?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be around, I know I do inventory, it'll usually be around 1,000 head, and that's calves, cows. The window changes daily.
Yeah.
We just finished spring calving Saturday.
Oh, Mike's, here you go. I'll scream.
We just finished calving, last Saturday, our last cow calf for the spring. And so now we're in the process of processing these cattle, vaccinating them, worming them. So we'll have in our sale this fall. But it's continued changes, you know, so we'll sell a set of feeder calves. So then your numbers will go down, and then you'll have another set of calves come along and your numbers come back up. And, yep.
Okay, let's go to the next photo.
That's 6 of my siblings there under the flag. My youngest brother's missing that. He was in Florida. This was in Minnesota. One of our cousins passed away. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the only time we have a family reunion. And, one in the middle is my oldest he's my only grandson, Tanner. He's on the bass fishing team for Rogersville. For an underclassman, he was asked to do that, so he feels pretty good about it. And you can kind of see he can fish. And then, the other pictures are 3 of my granddaughters. It's at a Rogersville football game.
Good, let's go to the next one.
The cow and calf on the left, we had a bull that we raised called Whitmore, and that's his full sister. And we used that's a little bull calf she had. He has been a herd bull for our deal. The other bull up on top is a bull we call Insight 30D. He ran with our sale cows that year. I took that picture like that.
Very good. Next. Ooh, good pictures there.
Yeah, it's always fun to see the moon, and full moon is always brighten things. It's kind of
So
cool.
what's gonna happen on the eclipse? It's gonna go.
We're going to be close, but we'll not be fully.
So what will the cattle do?
Nothing.
Okay.
So you give me something, only difference between that and
I thought animals go goofy during that.
they sense storms.
We will, we're going
Yeah.
goofy when that happens.
But like wildlife, when we getting ready to have a big storm come in or whatever, the wildlife will be out grazing, trying to tank up on feed and get prepared for not ever to be able to forage for a couple days. That's where we're moving cows there down the road. There's another pasture scene there on the right. The ones with the fencing in it, that's our sale. And so that would have been the morning of the sale that year. And I thought it was kind of cool to have that little ground fog and that. We were out there sorting in the dark, getting them ready so people show up.
So is this the one in October?
Yep.
So
Always
the
the
first
first
Saturday
Saturday.
of October.
Yeah.
And then you bring them up
Yeah,
to,
we'll bring them up, the calves will come up about 30 days ahead of time. The bulls will be the last thing to come because they can cause hate and discontent.
and this is a big deal. This is,
It is
this
a big
sale
deal. This
is
is
really
A
critical.
lot of my income comes in 2 hours of one day of the year. And so if someone says, how important is that? And I says, well, pretty important. And I know during COVID, we were the only thing in the state, in Missouri state that had a function. And it was not because we wanted to, it's because we had to. And they said, well, how do you cancel that? And I said, you got another budget I can operate out? Because we're non-allocated budget, so it's just, what we make is what pays everything.
And it's packed on that Saturday.
Yeah, it is packed, yeah. We'll have a lot of people coming. That's, last year was our 32nd sale.
Wow. Go to the next photo there. Yep. You know them by name?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's 180D on the top there, the little sign, Nathan's. Okay.
I wasn't sure if that was the right one or not. but I'll take your word for it. Yep.
This is a set of cows and calves we're taking to the corrals, to pull the calves off, wean.
Okay.
And I was following with the gator and I thought, this is kind of a cool picture. You
Yep.
kind of see the dust coming up. and
Yep.
It's kind of neat.
Great photos.
So that's some of our students. The 2020 was the last year we were in Denver with a pen. But those are several of the students that went out there with us. And we were division winners again that year. And then we would sell them in the national sale. So we'd sell pick of the pen and most times I'd sell two. So they pick one, then they could buy another one.
How much?
The first year we were there, we had one bring 14,000 and the next one brought 8,500. It pays a lot of bills.
Mm.
This is Andy Howard. She's a student here at MSU. She's showing that's at the Ozark Empire Fair. Heifer that we showed last year. This is cross pictures and we don't have barns to calve in. We calve out in the elements. It does a lot of things that teach these cows to be good mothers. I've had a foot of snow on the ground and those cows will have calves and they get up against a set of cedars or whatever. Cedars are better than any barn that's ever created because they breathe. Barns don't breathe and they get sick in them, but it's amazing how fast. This year we calved heifers in January and it was the coldest time that we had this winter. And those heifers would get those calves up in 10 and 15 minutes and have them nursing. And that's huge. You can't kill them after they get milk. I mean, it's just how big that is to get those calves up. And we stress maternal traits as part of our program. We're probably the top maternal herd in the state or in the Midwest, probably.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on.
It's a group of yearling heifers. They're on top. Once again, some sun and moon pictures and I don't know. I wish I'd had this phone and I could take pictures years ago because it's amazing how you can do things and then you share them and then people on Facebook, light up on it. And I don't do it a lot, but I do it enough to where, oh, wow. And you'll have 100 clicks an hour.
Peaceful. I describe it as peaceful.
It is very peaceful.
Yeah.
I know Vicky, she asked me, I'd leave after supper a lot of nights and I go, she said, where are you going? I said, I'm going out to pasture. She said, you want to go with me? We sat on the end gate and she says, this is what you do when you go? And I said, yeah. And I said, there's nothing better to watch these baby calves run around and tear with their tails up over their backs. Mamas are grazing and whatever happened that day goes away really quick.
Yeah. Oh, they're all gonna go there. Yeah.
That's a set of FFA students from Ava, came down, to tour and, just good bunch of good kids. That's a 2-year-old heifer fall calver that we had in the sale last fall. She brought $3,700 or $3,800 for their calf. That's inside. That's the picture we've seen up front. Okay. That's wildlife. Lots of deer. We planted 20 acres of wheat, and you could go down there in the evenings. There'd be 75 deer on that wheat.
Wow.
A lot of deer there in that country.
Hunting? You don't, okay, good.
There's one of the creeks. That's part of Clifty. I'm crossing it when I took that picture, but it just kind of caught my eye. It's nothing better than fresh water and cattle. It works good. You don't have to break ice there either.
Beautiful pictures. And for those that haven't been, I know, coming up on May 14th at 5:30, we are hosting, basically, open house and to
Yep.
see what the students are doing and to get a tour of the ranch. I think we're going out on the.
Yeah, we'll load up the flatbeds and put some bales of hay on it, and we'll take a tour whatever time allows us.
Yep, that's perfect. We were gonna do that last fall, and then I think it rained and, we always pick the right. wrong
And it
day.
could rain May 14th too.
We're doing it no matter what. You guys are tough, we'll be tough, as well. Okay, so now we're gonna go to a lightning round, before we get to questions online in this group. And so whatever comes into your mind, you just say it. There's no right or wrong. Okay, favorite food?
Beef.
Yeah. There is a wrong answer to that. If you would have said seafood, I would have worried. But beef. Yeah, you eat beef,
My wife thinks I need to eat fish. So we'll have some fish and things like that, and she'll grill shrimp sometimes, put in a salad, but,
beef is it.
beef is kind of the king for me.
Yeah, good. Movies or books?
I read a lot growing up. We didn't have a TV in the house, and I started reading when I was in 8th grade, and I mean, my enjoyment would be sit down and read a book. And part of that is self-education, but you virtually with a book, you can go anywhere. You know, your imagination, which most of our kids today don't have imagination anymore. But that was one thing that it did for me, and I constantly read now. I'm self-educated. And we had a professor here one time, and I come in and do a guest lecture. He says, "How do you know so much?" And I said, "Well, here's the difference. You got your doctorate and you quit. Your job was then to educate and take care of those kids. And your self-education is put on hold. Mine is done there. Technology has moved so quick in this business that you have to stay on top of it."
Favorite vacation place?
Oh, the ranch.
Do you take vacation?
Occasionally, Vicky and I took off. I don't know when that was.
Vicky's saying no. We do not go on vacation.
We went to Gulf Shores in Florida.
Twice? Oh, but let's move on before we get into a family.
Vacation for me is to take off a day, get away from the ranch, freshen my mind.
Yeah,
When they come to Springfield, may see a movie, go see the grandkids.
yeah. Okay, we'll move on quickly. This is going downhill. Get you in trouble. Are you an early morning dude
Yeah.
or a late night dude?
That can be late night some nights, but no, I get up and I'll work at my desk a lot of times before the phone starts ringing.
So what's late night to you? That's all?
Oh, 11 o'clock anymore.
Oh, that's real late, yeah.
Yeah.
But how early do you get up?
5:30.
5:30.
6, yeah.
You have a long day. Comedy TV or news on TV?
Used to be news. It's, everything that goes on in the world today, I have a hard time wanting to listen to it. I'll listen to it, just kind of stay tuned, but that's it. Try to get something that'll release me from, yeah, my daily job.
Ice cream or cake?
I don't eat much of either one now, but I love ice cream.
Yeah. Good. Summer or winter?
Used to didn't make any difference, but now I'm getting older, summer.
Yeah. Quiet alone time or a good party?
I'm pretty much to myself. My wife will say, "You're not talking much," and that's what I'm thinking. It's, I don't know, I can do both, but, I do a lot of my best thinking driving down the road or on a tractor cutting hay. Yeah.
You sort of touched on this, but teaching or learning?
I love to teach,
Oh,
and I mean, I love to learn, but be able to share what I've learned, my experiences, and hopefully cause someone from stumbling or help assist somebody in what they're doing. That's my favorite thing to do, because that's how I learned this business. It's been good to me.
yeah. Medium rare or well done?
Medium rare.
Yeah.
And if you think that's not enough, my wife loves it rare.
Really? So I married a farm girl and I go back to the family and we have steak. I get mine well done
Yeah.
and I get the bad eyes at it. So no, I figured that was.
My mother was that way. She cooked it until it was shoe leather.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a good steak was until one of the guys at church, he had a houseboat on the lake, which we just lived a block from. He says, "Come out there and swim down there and pull that anchor up." It was just a big brown disc and you had to kind of get the suction on it, but I'll cook you a steak. he cooked it medium rare. I never tasted anything like that, Mom. From that on.
Wow. Wow, good. All right, now we're gonna go to questions, from the group. Yes. Dr. Carter.
Sounds like you're already feeling it, but how's climate change gonna impact the operation?
Oh, I'm probably not the climate change guy you want to talk to because I've seen different. I've lived long enough, almost 70 years, and I've seen this different deals where we've been hot and dry, and I can go back through the years and say, well, we had 3 droughts in a row in this particular deal. Then we were blessed with rain and cooler temperatures and whatever. Is there something probably to it? And it's not the cows causing it. It's these vehicles out here that are doing it, but our cows don't fart. They just burp. It's still happening.
Did you get that in the textbook or did you learn that?
No, that's the truth.
That is. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
You mentioned being on the board for the polled Hereford Association. What's a polled Hereford versus a Hereford?
No horns.
No horns.
That's what fold means.
Okay.
I didn't know that either at one time. I said, what's this?
Anybody else know that? No, I don't.
So fold and then when we,
No.
yeah, and so when we merged, we just called it the American Hereford Association, which is both polled and horn today, and it's probably swapped in numbers. We're probably at 70% polled cattle.
Do they not grow horns or is
It's
it?
genetic.
It's genetic.
Yeah, there was a man in late 1800s drove around the country. So no horns occurred in the horn cattle called natural mutations. And he gathered those up and then he started breeding those, and that's what started the polled part of the Hereford breed.
Thank you.
Warren Gammon was his name.
Marilyn.
When you have a sale on the ranch, where do the people come from to buy?
All over. I've had people from South America. I had Randy Owens from Alabama, Teddy Gentry, they've been there before. They're in the Hereford business too.
South America.
Yeah.
So what up with that? How'd that happen?
Well, this guy comes to the States and he'll buy genetics and then, and that's something that's changed in South America. They used to all be grass fed. All your beef down there be grass fed. Well, they've cleared a lot of the timber off and they've started growing grains and now they're feeding those cattle. And once people go from a grass fed product to a grain fed, they aren't going back to grass. That's difference in taste. And Japan, I was on United States Meat Export Federation for 2 years, and we've got USDA representatives in every country. And Japan bought almost all their beef from Australia, and it was grass fed. Well, they went through like a 4-year drought there and couldn't supply the beef, and they started buying our beef from the US. They're not going to change. They buy a lot of our middle meats. They pay a lot of money for it.
Are you worried about the future of agriculture?
Yeah, part of it is we're so many generations removed from agriculture. Most of us sitting in this room haven't, they may know that their grandfather farmed or whatever. If you really actually go out here in the street and ask where their food comes from, they're gonna say Walmart or the grocery store. And we're down to just a little bit over 1% of the people are providing all the food and food.
Wow.
That's scary to me. And it's hard work. Most kids don't want to work that hard today. They can make more money doing something else. But, it's kind of like bees. If we didn't have bees, none of us would be eating. That's how important pollinators are. And so, yeah, it worries me. It does.
Do you still sell meat through grocery stores or?
We did prior to COVID, and that just jumbled up everything. Let me tell you, we had cattle in the process, and then, we were processing through Hormons, Hy-Vee, and then we'd sell some to the university, clientele, and staff and employees and that kind of thing. But we're not doing that at the present time.
Will you return to that?
Don't know, that's above my grade. So, what I found out, and Cliff can tell you more about, there's a lot of regulations, and then the university doesn't want to be liable for things, and so we had to buy insurance. We had to go through a lot of hoops that most people don't have to go through to do it. And we tested for salmonella and some of the other deals. Each animal has $45 for each test. So we went way and above to be able to do that and make that work. without having any liability to it.
Back to your comment about the drying and wet, I was born and raised in Texas County, and there was 2 years in the mid-50s where you could go in, people were on a farm would know, but you could mow what was there and rake right behind the mower and bale right behind the rake. It was so dry.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that dryness in this area since the mid-50s.
That's
So,
been 1954, and the
yeah, I
difference.
couldn't remember the year, but I.
The difference between now, that was the year I was born, but the difference between now and then, we didn't have ponds then. Everything was either live water or a creek or a stream. And we've got a spring there on the ranch. It's on the last piece of property Leo bought. All the neighbors brought their cattle. It was rocked in, but it was a spring, and that's where they all drank. Some drove their cattle 4 miles to have water, because they didn't have water.
And they did a lot of creative things. They baled anything you could bale. And I had an uncle that had, I don't know how many cattle he had, but I had 1,200 acres. They put blackstrap molasses on that stuff and the cows.
They get them
would
to
eat
eat it, yeah.
And so they didn't have to sell their cows, or,
Yeah.
but it was really dry.
Yeah, we've had 2012 was a year like that. That's the one everybody simulates to, and we were extremely dry. I've only purchased 60 round bales of hay in 42 years, and I've been in 13. And we lost so much grass, we just didn't have the hay to.
Another comment too, I have a cousin who's old now, but he has cattle down in Texas County. And I asked him one year, there was a guy on TV that said, well, he's running out of hay and blah, blah, blah. I asked him, I said, you running out? He said, hell, I haven't even started feeding last year's hay yet. He said, there are farmers that don't know how to farm. They don't understand you have to bale more hay than you need for the year. He said, there's a lot of them out there like that. They bale what they need for that year. So if it gets dry, they don't have any hay.
Well, this is my belief. If God gives it to you, you better take it, because he knows way beyond where we're at. And I always try to keep one barn that holds 550 bales, that's full all the time. And I've got another barn that holds about 150, and we keep those full. And then the rest gets stacked outside. And I had one of my employees, he's the youngest employee there right now. And he said, we don't need to be baling this much hay. And I said, you ain't living. And that's the truth. You gotta be ready, be prepared, because those are budget busters.
Angie, we have
$100
some,
bills of hay.
questions online. Okay.
Mike Wade asked, he said, my family grew stock cattle with black baldies. I see Angus associations have done a great job in grocery store marketing. When will we start seeing Hereford grown beef in the stores?
So we do have a product called certified Hereford beef. Spending almost the same length of planning, but like any product that gets labeled and done first, they have a leg up. A lot of that has to do with supply, and that goes back to the people that do the processing, like National, Tyson, whatever. So National, they do our certified Hereford beef processing, but they also have 5 brands of Angus meat. So those good black baldies coming across there they get pulled off and put in their product, and we'll get shorted. So we need another packer, make that be a little more successful, but it exists. You'll find it on restaurants, menus and things. You'll see CHB logo.
Tom had a question.
How much would your mature bull weigh and how much would a mature cow weigh?
Our cow herd probably averages about 1,300 cow weight. And so part of that's, so there's an equation there. So your steers, when you put them in the feed yards and feed them, most of the time they're going to mature to the size of their mother. And so they need to be at least 1,300 pounds, those steers do, to be profitable. And now these feeders are feeding them to 1,500 and just putting more fat on, but that gives them more yield. And so if you got a cow that weighs 900 pounds, more likely those steers won't make the grade in that deal. So we're seed stock too. So we sell almost 100 bulls privately and on our sale to the public. I've been doing that for some time. I've got some customers I've had for over 35 years. When they call, I know I'm selling a bull.
And the big bull in the picture, probably what?
He'll weigh 2,200, and that's probably about as big as I want one. And most of his weight is in his length. He was extremely long body, and that's kind of what we select for in our bulls. Got to have a long hip and a long body, and that'll add weight. It also creates cavity. Someone says, well, get a bigger calf. I said, well, if they make like a green bean or a string bean, they come easier because they're longer. And if they're too compact or too muscled, you'll have a little more trouble with diastocia.
mentioned the rarity of, I guess, having Hereford in the stores. I probably can't name for time all the different breeds, but where in the pecking order is Hereford in the?
We're second. So Angus, I mean, they probably register 300,000 a year. And we're in that 90,000 range. Of course, they've taken a lot more money. They're able to spend more money on advertising. It's no different than any other business. And they've done a pretty good job of doing their ad campaigns that Angus can do it all. Well, the Angus they're kind of in trouble. They're having trouble with their feet, they're having trouble with udders and some of the other things because they've just paid attention to the total end product. And dollar beef is what is called in that deal. And so they haven't paid attention to what I call the economic relevant traits, and that's feet and legs, and longevity and things. It takes probably 5 years for a cow to pay herself off. So you can have virtually when she's a calf, she's not producing. And as a yearling, she's not producing. And she doesn't produce till she's 2, and it's 9 months after she calves before you can market one. So you've got about 2.5 years there to pay your expenses on raising. And so it takes a little while. It takes me 5 years to prove a bull, but I can write all the chapters and how much, how good are the daughters, how good are the udders, how good are the feed, how the performance, all those things. And even with genomics today, where we can take the DNA and be able to figure out the markers, and it changes numbers, it's still, we've got 3 billion markings in bovine species, and we're only testing at 50K and only using about 28,000 markers of that.
Other questions? Yes.
How old do your cattle get, ideally?
Oldest cow I've got right now is 15. Got another one's 14. People look at them and say, well, they don't look that old. But that's longevity, and that's the money that's the profit deal for any of the cattle industries, how long they live. I've got a herd bull, he's 11. Most people think he's 5 or 6, but I'll turn, if he passes his breeding soundness exam, he'll go back out. I can't buy that, to have that, that's proven, and just, I don't know, I build a lot of stuff off those things in the breeding program.
Other questions? Any more online, Angie?
No.
Other questions? Are you glad you didn't become an architect?
Well, I am an architect.
You still
I
are?
design cattle.
Yeah, that's good. I guess you are. I guess you are. Yeah.
But similar, I mean, it's a similar process, but it just, yeah, I'm very thankful. This has been something I'd never expected to be a part of, and I've done well doing it, and I've got to see a lot of people and travel a lot of places and things where I probably wouldn't have.
Marty, if I could pitch to May 14th, what else will we see about the ranch for those of us coming out there May 14th?
Well, we'll probably drive through some pastures where we've got cows, and, they won't be babies anymore, but they'll be, cattle that are probably 4 months old, 5 months old at the time. You're gonna sit to see the scenery. We're doing a project with the conservation department where they've partnered with us. And so we've developed springs and some of those kind of things. I put in a solar pump where we're pumping water up over a hill into a spring tank where we couldn't build a pond. Doing some things with them, fencing off timber. We've done some blade clearing where we cut all the cedars out. It's amazing once you cut that shade out, all the grass, and I'm talking about native grass, don't tell how long it's laid there, will just pop up because of the sun. And so we can go in there, and with our grazing plan, we can graze that off at different times out of the year, take advantage of that, but it also provides shelter for the wildlife and turkeys and quail and things like that. And we still have quail. That's one of the few places you'll find quail.
Well, Marty, we're glad you are our genius. We're glad that life turns out the way it does. I mean, this was never in the cards for you, for Missouri State. We're so thankful for the Journagans for making such an important, long-lasting donation that generations to come. This is something the university couldn't do on its own. And so this is, we're unique as an institute around the country. Okay. Marty, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Let's
you.
give Marty Lueck a round. Speak of being an architect, actually, when we come back in May, I think May 8th, actually, we're going to have a genius, Laura Derrick, an architect. from Missouri State. So you'll have to come back and then pepper her with questions about architecture. But thank you for being here with lunch with the genius. And we will see you soon, if not later. Go Bears.